All right, let's do it again.
Roll it back.
We had some technical difficulties in the live stream, so we don't trust our internet to try to repeat the process. So we're just gonna record something now and pretend it's a live stream. So this is unedited. So wish us luck.
Yeah, the quality will be better though, and there will be no lagging.
True.
So.
And we have all the questions. So yeah, hopefully it'll be the same thing. But yeah, kicking things off again, want to thank everyone for coming out and supporting, whether you were at Alcatraz watching the race and cheering, coming to say hi, or just part of our community that we've come to love so much. Thank you for everyone supporting us. And then our sponsors, Quintana Roo and Vision, making this race and our whole season possible. Rule 28 and Cask for kitting us out on race day and in practice. Really could not do it with all of our sponsors, which have been amazing this year. So, let's get to it.
For the people who were not there for the beginning of our last live stream, do you want to start off by talking a little bit about the race and what the Escape from Alcatraz is, what makes it such a unique course, and okay, fine.
Yeah, you gotta be in the shot, Jenna.
And just start it off by giving us some background.
Yeah. So Alcatraz is an insanely unique race. It was actually inspired by an escape from the prison that is on Alcatraz Island. It no longer functions as a prison. It's just a tourist. It's a place that people go to visit now and see the history of.
And swim from.
Yeah. But it's a really weird rock in the middle of San Francisco Bay. But yeah, the people escaped from the prison, had to swim across the bay. So there's this whole mystery around the island and everything. So that inspired the triathlon. The triathlon has been around for 45 years now. And the professional field for this triathlon is invite only. So I really want to thank the Escape from Alcatraz and the hard workers behind it for including me in this for this year. Hopefully I can do it again, but it was really fun to race right in my backyard. Jenna and I live 20 minutes away from San Francisco, so it feels like our hometown race, and it's cool to have such an iconic race be our hometown race. But the course is a 1.5 mile swim, roughly, from Alcatraz to the shore, and that really changes year to year depending on the currents and the chop and just everything that really jumbles up the bay. It's not a great place to swim unless you have an escort boat and you really know what you're doing with the tides. So sometimes it's a 18-minute swim, sometimes it's a 30-minute swim or longer. This year we did it in around 30 minutes. Anyways, that's the swim portion. T1 is like a half mile or more run from the shore to the transition area. It's all just on pavement, so your feet really get bruised up. So it's like that's almost like a whole other leg of the triathlon. And the bike is 18 miles, starting from kind of the Marina Green right there on shore, looping around towards the Golden Gate Bridge to the beaches on the other side of San Francisco. A lot of hills. It's an 18-mile course, and it feels like you're climbing for 15 of those miles. It does a big loop in Golden Gate Park, and it comes back around the same course. Even more kickers of climbs. But it's a very unique bike course, and you have to be super engaged the whole time. And then the run is 8 miles, and that follows the bike course kind of in the sense that you loop around towards the Golden Gate Bridge, a lot of climbing. Most of it is on dirt and trails. There's about a mile out and a mile back on a beach, so you just get close to the water where the sand is hard, and you run along the beach, you do your turn. There's the infamous sand ladder at the end of that beach section. That's basically, I forget how many steps. What did they say? I don't know. takes the faster pros around 2 minutes to do, and it's just it's like, imagine if your football coach was yelling at you to do stadiums because you were late to practice. It's like one of those. I never played football, but I'm just imagining.
But you did do stadium practice
I
on
did.
your own.
As a swimmer, I would do stadiums, so I was just imagining that. But it's like these logs that are placed in sand, and you just run up them, and it's really steep, and it's very difficult. And then you run back. Same kind of a lot of on trails. So it's overall just very unique, very hilly, different terrain. So it was an adventure.
Yeah, I mean, the course seemed like it was the polar opposite from Gulf Coast, which is your last race.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
it couldn't, I don't think it could have been more different besides, like, the ocean swim. That was, like, a little rough. But what did you do to train up to this? Like, it's so technical. How did your training change, or did it change?
Yeah, I think the most important thing always in training is consistency. So in that sense, my training and my approach to training didn't change that drastically. I think after Gulf Coast, we were like, okay, we have 4 weeks to do a little bit of like punchy, like develop some like punchy power in your legs, develop a little bit of strength for running up hills. But all in all, you're not going to get much like fitness benefit from that, just trying to squeeze it into a couple weeks. More so is just around like the mental preparation of like, oh wow, flat, warm Florida, cold, hilly San Francisco. Like, let's make sure we get into cold water when we complete our travels and come back here. Let's get into cold water. Let's make sure we run up some hills. And just whenever you run up hills, switching a gear in your mind to say like, okay, imagine I'm running up a hill in a race. Not at the effort that you would in a race, but just like focusing on what your body is doing as you're running up the hill. Same with biking. It's just like, instead of practicing all of my workouts in aero at 70.3 pace, doing harder efforts and coming out of aero and just practicing like what all of that feels like, and getting your head into the zone of like, you know, just those different kinds of efforts, different positions and stuff. So I'd say it was like more mental preparation than anything.
Speaking of the swim, how was it?
The swim was great.
What was the water temperature going into it, and what was the current like?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the day before, I actually don't know how long the swim was in the aquathlon, but the tracker said that like the fastest times were like 7 to, actually maybe I'm making that up, but maybe it was like 15 minutes.
Well, they told us it was going to be like the fastest swim ever.
Yeah.
Like, you were at the meeting,
Yeah.
too. You were at the briefing. They were like, the current last year was 1.2 knots. This year it's 2.8. And last year was also very fast. So they were hyping it up to be a really fast swim. The people that we know in the area were saying it's going to be really fast. And then you look out on the day of the race, and it's like, oh, wow, there's not much wind. There's not much chop. So it's like, I'm thinking like, oh, it's going to be a 15-minute swim. Literally 15 minutes. And I don't know, I didn't wear a watch for the swim or for the whole race, so I had no perception of time. But I feel like you can answer the, like, how is the swim question better than I just found a groove and followed Eric Lagerstrom's feet the whole time, and kind of like, you know, I led for a little bit of it, and then like found the pack, and I knew that was Eric, and the lead boat was right in front of us, so we just followed that. But the swim experience that I had was a lot different than like what it looked like and what a lot of like other athletes had.
Yeah. I mean, well, last year...
It was wild, apparently.
Yeah. Last year, the top pros were like 24, 25 minutes. And this year, you guys were all like 29, 30 minutes. So it was a little bit slower, but definitely not as advertised. I don't know what happened to a lot of the age groupers, but what I did see at the beginning of the pro start of the run, I like made my way down to like, I don't know, mile 1 or so of the run, which is right by the water. And I just saw utter mayhem happening underneath the bridge. And I could see people getting swept out. This is like, I don't know, an hour ish into the swim, I
Yeah.
guess. People getting swept out under the bridge, out into like the ocean. That's what's on the other side of the bridge. And there were like kayaks and jet skis and boats just like under there grabbing people and bringing them back to shore. And there was a train of people running and walking up the coast, like back to
Like 2 miles.
literally,
Like,
2 miles
like,
back to the bag pickup for anybody who wanted to like get
Yeah.
clothes and change from there, from the swim exit to transition.
Because
It
once
looked
the
demoralizing.
current takes you, like in the bay, because the currents are so strong in there,
Yeah.
once the current takes you past where you're trying to go, you have no shot.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think, tried to swim against the current.
I saw a lot of
instead
people
of
doing
trying to
that.
swim to shore. And when you swim against the current, you're just gonna keep getting pushed and never make it anywhere.
Yeah, you aren't going, you're
Yeah.
really not just going to go. You aren't going to go anywhere.
I'm sure we're selling the race right now for everyone. But honestly, like the Escape from Alcatraz, having done it only once now, but just growing up near it and everything, it's a really cool race, and everyone should check it out because it's got a lot of interesting factors involved. And if you're just up for a really cool challenge and like a bucket list race to do once in your life, like this is a cool one to do.
There were a lot of questions about sharks.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
lots of sharks out there.
How many did you see? Did you grab a
6 or
dorsal
7.
fin? I'm pretty sure the
No.
sharks are more afraid of the people.
Yeah.
If there are any, which usually there are never sharks in the bay.
Sharks are common in this area, but they all usually stay like out in the like outside of the bay, like in the ocean part of the Golden Gate Bridge. But yeah, no sharks.
I saw a lot of sea lions as I was waiting.
There are a lot of sea lions.
And again, they were probably much more afraid of the 2,000 swimmers in the bay.
Yeah,
Then.
that would freak people out.
Switching gears a little bit to just like the field that you were competing with and the 7 pros on the men's side, 6 pros on the women's side that were invited. Like, how did you feel being one of the 7, like going into this race next to like, I don't know, seeing your name next to like Jason West and Eric Lagerstrom's must be interesting.
Like I said, it's an honor to just have been invited to this race. Like literally 7 pro men were invited, and it was really cool receiving one of those invites because I know a lot of people apply, so I mean, just that fact alone, I was just happy to be there. Seeing the other pro men on the start list, like, I try not to think about it too much, especially in this first year as a professional. I don't want to get caught up in like who I'm racing. I think what I'm realizing now, only after 3 races, but like I'm getting in the habit of calling each of these races a data point, right? And having success at Gulf Coast is great. It doesn't mean I'm there, I've arrived, and like this, now it's time to shine and everything, but it's like, that's a good data point. And I learned something from that. And I come into this race and I'm still focused on like collecting more data for myself. And once you start getting caught up in like who you're racing and what other people are doing, you lose track of like the clean data that you're trying to collect, Like you want your data when you're conducting an experiment, you want your data to be as clean as possible. So I think like focusing on what you are doing and like the improvements that you're making and the different adjustments that you're making race to race are way more important to track than like comparing yourself to Jason West, Eric Lagerstrom, the other phenomenal pros that were out there. Mark Dubrick, have we not mentioned him? But he won and he put out an amazing race. But yeah, I think it's an honor to be racing these guys, but I'm doing my best not to think about it as much. As Ted Lasso would say, be a goldfish. People will say, like, how does it feel to be racing these guys? And it's like, it's really cool. But then when you start racing, you got to forget all of that and focus on what you're doing.
Did the race build some confidence in you? Like, I know going into it, it did feel a little bit scary to be lining up against 6 really, really fast athletes. And you expressed to me that like it was there was nowhere to hide in a field of 7. And do you, I don't know, feel like you kind of belong now?
I like to think that, like what makes you belong is like the preparation that goes in and not the actual outcome of the race. So I felt like based on how I prepared for this race, and like people say like training like a pro and everything, which is true, but it's not as simple as like putting in as much volume as professional athletes. It's doing all of these little things and honing in the details so you can put out like the best performance you possibly can. Mm-hmm. So I think without looking at the results before I even started the race, it's like I belong because of the amount of time that I put into preparing for this race. Both training, making myself as fit as possible, but also figuring out how to, do this course correctly. Because again, it was super unique. I've never put in this amount of preparation as it relates to like the course and the strategy around it than I have for this. So I think, I belong, but it's like, that has nothing to do with the outcome. Like I could have had a really terrible outcome, finished, last by 20 minutes, but I still would have the same belief. So
you ended up racing like a really strong professional, but you also prepared for the race like a really strong professional.
And I feel like that gets lost in a lot of these conversations because no one sees it. And I like to think we try to make it as transparent as possible. We didn't do a lead up for a race for Alcatraz, or we didn't do a video like a lead up to Alcatraz, but that would have been a super interesting one because I feel like there was a lot that went into it. But
people could have watched you do sand ladder repeats.
Once. One sand ladder, because I didn't want to kill myself before the race.
You didn't want to blow your taper on it.
But you do it once and you have the mental imagery of what it is and how to approach it, and you can think about it a lot, So as long as you really digest what you're doing and focus on what you're doing, you can take that home and practice it mentally.
Yeah. And it was a really technical bike course too, and I like that you went out there a couple times to ride it. Most of the other pros that had done the race, or that were doing the race, had done it in the past, and so they kind of knew what the turns were going to be like and how steep the steepest part was. And I mean, we're lucky too to be able to live here so that you had the opportunity to go out there. But I think that really helped you mentally as well. Yeah,
I did the bike course twice. Once on a road bike really slowly just to acknowledge every turn, every bump in the road, etc. And then I did it a second time on my TT bike to figure out what gearing I wanted to be in. I did the descents at nearly full speed as safely as I could in a city, but like to make sure I had the right lines to figure out this line doesn't have potholes, but if I'm over there it does, so I'm going to stay here. There were like 18 speed bumps throughout the course, so like making sure you know how you're going to get over those safely and quickly. So I think like having the opportunity to do it twice, once just like to really focus on the details, and then the other to practice a little bit at full speed with the bike that you're going to ride is important.
With such a small group of professionals, this is the last question I'm going to ask you about the whole group, but we got some questions about the smack talk and meeting everyone. Yeah, I don't know. Were you throwing some bows out there?
Yeah, with Victoria, who won the women's race. During the swim, we were battling a little bit, and then I think the day before the race, Eric took his sweet time in his pre-race interview with. So I think that was a little bit of sabotage. Yeah. Making everybody wait around.
Yeah, and actually I think Mark was playing coy a little bit. And was like, I'm just a rookie here.
I've never done this. Yeah. I don't know.
What's a current?
Yeah. I've never seen sand in my life. No. Everyone was... This is like... the two other pro races that I've done have both been Ironman races, bigger pro fields and everything, and things seemed like a little stuffy at those. I think like it seems like the pros that showed up here, and I think it's just the environment that the race creates here, is like everybody's showing up just because it's an incredible opportunity to be invited. Everyone's super grateful. Everybody's, decently chatty before these things and willing to help, each other out. Like we're all looking outside the boat, getting ready to go, and we're like we're having conversations about how to get the right line. I think Mark hid some information from everybody, but
he's like, "Oh yeah, you definitely
yeah,
should
go over
that
there,"
way.
and then he just goes the opposite direction and beats us by 2 minutes. But
You can only say that because like Mark
he's
is
a
so
super
kind.
nice guy. Yeah, it was really cool getting to know him at this race, and it'll be fun racing him in the future. But yeah, that was fun.
What was your favorite part of the course or part of the day?
I feel like my favorite part of the race itself was just being super confident on my bike, on that bike leg. I've never felt like the Quintana Roo VPR is not lying the perfect bike for this course. It's like the acceleration on it is really good. It's really light to hit all those climbs really well, take the turns hard, come out of them really well. The handling on it is really good. You won't get blown over in the wind. Like it was the perfect bike for this. And the more I'm riding it, the more dialed in I feel on it, in an aero position, out of an aero position. But I felt just like really in tune with the machine I was riding. And on this course, it was like my legs felt really good, and it was just fun to have some really fast guys to race. So, I think, we're talking about comparing this to Gulf Coast. It's the exact opposite. This is way more fun of a course than Gulf Coast, because it's it's just, you have to be so locked in and dialed in, especially if you're trying to go as fast as you can. But that's really fun to spend. I don't know how fast I did the bike, like 46 minutes or something, but to be that dialed in for 46 minutes is like, you wish there was more of it, because time flies when you're that locked in. But it was really fun to do that.
What do you do to get locked in? Like what type of mental cues do you use to stay focused during a race? Obviously this race, the course kind of makes you stay focused, but I don't know, I find myself sometimes zoning out during races.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, and we've talked about
Everyone.
like what we think about during the race. So how do you like stay focused on?
I feel like the first step to that, for me at least, is attitude. And if you go in with an attitude of like, maybe like, I don't know, a little like lackadaisical maybe, you're gonna be more prone to zoning out. If you're going with not a lot of confidence, you might zone out a little bit, or you might, do something stupid. So I think like the attitude that I try to have going into the bike leg is like being excited to be not in the water anymore. Like we're swimmers, but the swimming part, you're towards the end of a hard swim, you're always like, when is this going to end?
Yeah.
Like when can I get onto my bike? So I try to like not have that attitude too, but like I try to have the attitude of finishing a swim strong, but also like getting onto the bike, I just try to be like just excited about what I'm doing. And then talking to my bike guy, Mitch, he's been really helpful in, looking at my position and helping me remember some things to get more dialed in. He keeps on saying I got to get better at turtling, which means like tucking your head in and getting your shoulders up. So I was thinking about that. So thanks, Mitch, for helping with my turtling.
Yeah, the pictures look good.
And then also I was telling you about this right before this thing, is from the movie Sandlot, when Smalls is like introduced to his new group of friends, and he's like, "Don't be a doofus, don't be a doofus." I was also thinking about that, try to be as cool as possible.
Did you feel like a doofus running on the loose sand on the turnaround?
There were a lot
run?
of portions where I felt like a
Yeah.
doofus. Yeah, that was one. Running through the sand. The beginning of the sand ladder is like really deep sand too, so you're like running in place. You're like on a treadmill.
Whoa!
Yeah. And then like, I'm still super new at this, so like, racing some guys that I've been looking up to the last couple years, and I'm like, I feel like a doofus racing you right now. But and that's a subconscious thought, and I'm trying to like, shake that off and be like, do your own race and like see how it plays out, as opposed to like looking at Eric ahead of me and being like, oh, I don't know if I should race him. I don't know if I should pass him. But, again, focusing on your own race and seeing where you can go with it.
Yeah, what else do I have for you? Somebody asked about just your recent successes at the beginning of your rookie career and what's ahead. And really, like, thinking about the PTO and rankings and all of that, and specifically, like, would a PTO race be in your future? Obviously, you're like ranked in the 300s right now, and you've got no controls. But like, how would you feel being invited to the Collins Cup in the future? And
well, I'm going to talk about this in the context of the Ted Lasso thing that I mentioned of be a goldfish. So I'm going to talk about it and then forget about it. But I think it would be incredible to work my way into a position where I was invited to PTO races, because I am like that ambitious and I don't want to put a ceiling on what I'm doing and have goals that are just like, I want to crack the top 200. I want to crack the top 100. But if I were to be invited to race the best in the world, which is happening at Finland too, I'm going to show up and prepare as well as I can, just like every race. So I think, I want to see where I can take this. And I think the last couple races, Gulf Coast and Alcatraz, it's putting myself in these positions, and it's like, I feel like I'm just out there doing the same thing that I've done 100 times. Like, I'm just running hard. I'm just biking hard. But now I'm doing it as fast as, again, people that I've looked up to the last couple of years. And it helps you understand that, like, no one out there is doing anything special. In the world that I'm living in right now, it's like I am doing what it takes to compete. So I think as long as I continue to focus on what I'm doing and my own improvements, I think I'll continue to show up to races and be like, still have that same reaction. Like, these guys aren't doing anything special. Like, I'm right there. So I think it's premature to talk about like being invited to the Collins Cup, but keeping the momentum going, maybe there's a chance.
And so, what's next?
Well, Jenna has a couple races coming up. What are you doing before
this isn't about me though.
Yeah, it is.
I'm doing a little local race in Sonoma in a few weeks. It's the Cal Tri Kendall Jackson Olympic race. It's the first one that they're doing up there. They're actually holding it in like the same area that like Vineman was in and Wildflower. It's kind of an homage to those races that no longer exist. They also apparently give you a glass of wine at the finish line. So
nice. I'll have to get a media pass for that one.
Hopefully that comes with a glass of wine too. But then, I just kind of wanted something on my schedule before August when Nationals and Worlds are.
Yeah, and then Nationals, and then you're also guiding.
Oh yeah, and then I'm going to race on Saturday at Nationals and guide on Sunday, which will be really fun. So I'm excited for that. And like that'll be a huge weekend too.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be invited to the US Open.
Oh, yeah, that would be cool. But I'm doing wouldn't that be nice? I'm doing Oregon late July, and that's going to be a tune-up for Finland in late August. So, yeah, time for more 70.3s for me. And then, no, we won't get. We might have some really exciting things later on in the year.
Yeah, we'll see.
But we will not talk about that now.
Okay. Anyway, sorry to everybody who was there for our live stream. Here's the new one, and yeah, we'll see you for the next one. We have the Chattanooga video coming out in a couple days, a day,
tomorrow,
maybe.
yeah.
Sure, maybe tomorrow. Took a little bit to get that one out, but we've been dealing with some things, and yeah, just
life got in the way.
Yeah,
so
needed some time.
Here we are. But yeah, more videos to come. That's
Bye.
it.